I planned the perfect proposal and found out she was already secretly engaged to someone else. You know that moment in a heist movie where the camera cuts between the blueprints, the gear, the rehearsed timing, and the cool voiceover saying, "What could go wrong?" That was me planning a proposal. Except my gear was a ring I absolutely could not afford, a Spotify playlist titled "Don't Panic," and a speech I'd rehearsed so many times I started to hate my own voice. I'm 33. She, Lena, is 31. We met in line at a food truck 3 summers ago because I forgot my wallet, and she bought me a burrito like it was the most normal thing in the world to do for a stranger who looked like he'd been personally victimized by a chalkboard menu. I tried to pay her back on Venmo, and she wrote, "Debt forgiven," with the halo emoji, which, yes, I mocked mercilessly while secretly rereading. I asked her out a week later. It worked. Somehow. The hinge moments were small. The night my AC died and she showed up with a box fan and popsicles. The morning she met my sister, and they started making fun of me like they'd been training for it their whole lives. That Thanksgiving, when her dad got sick, and she still cooked 2 sides from scratch at 1 a.m. because she didn't want to show up with store-bought. Nothing cinematic, just a steady stack of reasons. We moved in together last year, a 2-bedroom in a building that's trying to be historic and industrial at the same time. Brick walls that make you feel cool, plumbing that makes you feel humble. We turned the 2nd bedroom into a shared office and then proceeded to work at the kitchen table like normal people. Our neighbors have a toddler who shouts "dog" at every living thing, including pigeons. We bought a plant we named Malcolm that we've kept alive out of spite, not skill. It's the kind of life you can blink and miss in a montage, and that's exactly why I wanted to propose. I didn't want fireworks. I wanted a long hallway of small, good days with her. I told maybe 4 people. My sister, because she is constitutionally incapable of minding her business, and therefore my best coach. Her text back to my "I think I'm doing it" was "finally" in 17 letters. My friend Nate, who said, "Don't overthink it," which is like telling a hurricane to chill. My mom, who tried very hard not to cry on FaceTime, and then asked if she should grow her hair out for the photos. And the jeweler, a calm man with a tiny loop, who said things like "excellent fire," while I pretended to know what that meant. The ring nearly killed me. Not financially. Okay, yes, financially, but also spiritually. I don't wear jewelry. I don't know cut from clarity from carat. I barely know carrots. But I knew what Lena liked. Simple, not flashy. Yellow gold, because she likes warm metals. A round stone because she once said ovals look like almonds, and now I can't unsee it. I looked at 100 settings and kept coming back to one. Thin band, low profile, a stone that caught light without punching me in the face about it. I picked it up on a Thursday and walked home with my hand crammed so deep into my jacket pocket, I almost dislocated my shoulder, protecting it. Like a raccoon hoarding a treasure. The plan: a Saturday in the park where we had our 2nd date, because the 1st date had worked, but the 2nd date made it real. The park is all maple trees and joggers, and a pond so shallow, it's basically a decorative puddle. There's a footbridge that looks good in photos if you don't zoom in on the graffiti. My sister agreed to hide nearby with her nice camera, pretending to shoot ducks. Nate was on standby to set up a picnic blanket and not eat the props. I coordinated the playlist. Songs Lena likes that won't make me sound like I'm auditioning to be a husband in a rom-com. I wrote the speech in the notes app like a teenager, then transferred it to a small index card because I decided paper looked more authentic. I hate that word and used it anyway. I practiced. God help me, I practiced. In the mirror, in the shower, while washing dishes. My reflection started to feel like a skeptical audience. I tried versions. The memory tour version. Remember the food truck? The funny version. You Venmo scammed me into a life sentence. The earnest version. You make the ordinary feel like a place I want to live forever. Every version sounded like I was trying to be a person who proposes, instead of just being myself. My sister said, "Stop saying forever like you're reading a hostage note." Helpful. I booked a dinner after nothing fancy, but with cloth napkins, which is my personal metric for big deal. I called her favorite bakery and begged for a small cake with "yes" piped in tiny letters because I thought it would be cute if it matched the ring box, which is the exact type of overthinking Nate warned me about. I even checked the weather 10 times a day like I was planning a lunar landing. All clear. Low 70s. Golden hour lining up with our arrival at the bridge, like the sun itself had RSVP'd. Lena, for her part, was distracted. I chalked it up to work, Her team was rolling out a product update, the kind with a hold your breath until 2 a.m. vibe. She'd step onto the balcony to take calls and come back in with that focused face she gets when she has to be the adult in a room of adults. She started putting her phone face down a lot, which she'd never done before. I didn't love it. I also didn't want to be the guy who reads meaning into posture. Besides, she was still Lena, stealing my fries, using my hoodie like a treaty, falling asleep with her mouth slightly open like a cat in a sunbeam. If she was hiding anything, it looked like exhaustion. I did catch little moments that felt off. She flinched when I walked in once while she was texting. She switched apps with the speed of a teenager. When I asked what she wanted to do Saturday, she said, "I might go for a run first thing," even though she hates morning runs. Still, I made room in the plan. I told her we had a low-key Saturday surprise, a phrase that makes no sense and yet has a way of disarming suspicion because it sounds like a coupon book. She rolled her eyes and said, "If this is an escape room, I'm leaving you in it," which I took as a yes to everything else in life. Friday night I barely slept, not from fear, but from adrenaline. The ring box was in my sock drawer under 3 very boring pairs of socks, and I kept getting up to check it like the diamond might have grown legs and left. At 2 a.m., I went to the kitchen for water and found Lena there in the dark, lit by the fridge light like a Renaissance painting. She jumped, laughed, said she couldn't sleep either. We stood there, 2 people awake for totally different reasons, and hugged like a preview of something. She kissed me like she was already somewhere else in her head. Then smiled and said, "Tomorrow, let's do nothing." And I almost laughed, because tomorrow I was planning to do everything. Saturday morning, the kind of sky you buy postcards of. I texted my sister, green light, sent Nate the playlist link, pocketed the ring, and told Lena to wear something comfy. She wore the blue dress that makes her look like she could star in a commercial for a life with good lighting. She asked, casually, "Is your sister coming?" And I lied, casually, "Maybe later." I felt gross about the lie and gave myself permission because it was a lie in service of a larger truth. That's how you become a politician. In the rideshare, I felt the speech thrumming under my ribs. The driver had the radio on low. A song Lena loves came on and she reached over and squeezed my hand without looking at me. That absent-minded tenderness you only get when someone's made space for you in their default settings. I wanted to propose right there in the back seat with the receipt as our witness. We got to the park. Nate texted, "Blanket down. Duck's suspicious." My sister texted a photo of a mallard like she was on assignment for National Geographic. I guided Lena along the path toward the bridge, trying to appear normal, which is a great way to look deeply weird. She noticed my breathing was weird and asked if I was okay. I said, "Cardio is a scam." She laughed and tugged me along. We reached the bridge. The light did the thing I'd hoped it would do. Gold around the edges of her hair, the whole scene glowing like we were inside a filter. I swallowed, reached into my pocket to touch the ring box like a talisman, and felt that small, private thrill you get when the thing you planned is about to become the thing that actually happened. "Hey," I said, stopping her in the middle of the bridge. "Wait." She turned to me, curious, a little wary, because "wait" on a bridge is rarely a normal sentence. I took her hands. I felt the speech rise up my throat like a roller coaster cresting the hill. And then, because of course, her phone buzzed. She glanced down, then froze. Her face changed in a way I've never seen a human face change. Not fear, not guilt. Something like calculation, then decision. "Hold on," she said. Not to me, to the person on the screen. The moment stretched, thin and strange. I kept holding her hands because I didn't know what else to do. She pulled one free, stepped back, turned slightly away, and answered the call with a voice that wasn't her normal phone voice. Softer, intent. "Hey, yeah, I'm on my way. I'll be there in 10. I felt something cold slip under my ribcage. The speech, abandoned mid-sentence, scattered like marbles on a floor. I forced a smile I didn't feel and said, "Work?" She nodded, too fast. "Sorry. Something came up. Can we rain check?" She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, that nervous tell I'd loved 1,000 times. In a movie, I would say the ring box fell out of my pocket and into the pond, and we both dove in and laughed. In real life, I said, "Of course," and hated the sound of my voice. Agreeable, small. She kissed me, quick, on the cheek, and started to walk, then turned, like she remembered something she should say. "You're the best," she added, and jogged off the bridge. I stood there, the bridge suddenly very long and very empty, and watched her go. I texted my sister, "Abort," and meant it in ways I hadn't planned to. Nate sent a string of question marks. I sat on the picnic blanket alone, like a man who'd been stood up by his own future. It took me a full 5 minutes to move. When I did, it was mechanical. I gathered the props, stuffed them back in a bag, told my sister I'd explain later, told Nate to take the cake home and eat it before it grew a personality. My phone buzzed again. A text from Lena. "I'm sorry. Rain check? Love you." And I did what people do when they don't want to ruin a good thing with the truth they're not ready to meet. I texted back, "Love you too." I went home, sat on the edge of our bed, stared at the ring box in my hand like it might explain itself. I put it back in the sock drawer because I didn't know where else to put this version of myself. An hour later, my sister showed up with the cake and the look of someone who will either hug you or burn a car. Dealer's choice. I told her the basics. She ran off on a call, said 10 minutes, never came back. My sister's mouth made a line. "Weird," she said. "Like capital W." I nodded. Then I defended Lena, because that's what you do when you're in love and trying not to see the shape of a shadow. She left. I showered because sometimes hot water is the only religion that does anything. When I came out, Lena was back, hair damp from that micro drizzle the sky does when it can't commit. She looked tired and sweet, and exactly like the person I wanted to marry. She wrapped her arms around my waist and said, "Sorry, sorry, sorry," into my chest. I said, "It's okay," into her hair. We watched something dumb. We ate cake out of the box with forks. She fell asleep halfway through an episode. I turned down the volume and memorized her profile in the TV light because I wanted to remember why I was doing all this. That's the night I told myself, tomorrow. Tomorrow, new plan. Spontaneous, low stakes. Breakfast in bed proposal? Rooftop. Stairwell with bad lighting and the right person? I didn't care where, I just wanted out of the purgatory of almost. Fate loves a man with a plan because it means there's something to ruin. At 1:17 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally, I would have ignored it. I did ignore it at first. Then it buzzed again. And again. Not frantic, rhythmic, like someone trying and failing to be patient. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the spaces between each buzz like a sailor listens for a lighthouse bell. I rolled over. The screen lit up. A first name I didn't recognize. 3 letters. Common. Nothing. Everything. And under it, 3 words that moved my entire life 3 inches to the left. "Did you tell him?" The room went very quiet. Lena didn't move. The phone went dark. The ring box, sleeping in the sock drawer, might as well have started screaming. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't wake her up. I didn't do anything heroic or awful. I lay there and watched the ceiling and felt the layout of my future rearranging itself without my consent. Tomorrow, I had promised myself. Tomorrow came. And it brought the answer to a question I hadn't even known how to ask. If part 1 was the plan, then part 2 is where the cracks start showing. The things that don't fit neatly into the love story I'd been telling myself. The little signs that at first you dismiss, then rationalize, then obsess over until they're all you can see. After that night, the text that lit up her screen with, "Did you tell him?" I barely slept. I didn't wake Lena, didn't ask. I lay there with my pulse in my ears, telling myself it could mean anything. Work stuff, family drama, a friend being dramatic. But once the seed was planted, every new buzz sounded different. Every screen glow felt like a spotlight. She had never been a phone face-down person. Suddenly, every time she set her phone down, the screen was against the table. She said it was habit. I told myself I believed her. Lena worked in tech. Calls at odd hours weren't unusual, but they started to cluster at weird times. Late nights on the balcony, murmured voices, the kind of laugh she usually saved for me. Once, I caught her slipping into the hallway with her laptop bag at 9 p.m., claiming she had to fix something urgent at the office. I offered to walk her over. She waved me off. "No need. Go to bed." She was back 2 hours later, hair damp from a shower. Smelling faintly of a cologne that wasn't mine. I noticed, but I swallowed it. She told me she had a girls' weekend in the city, supposedly with her college friends. I believed her, because why wouldn't I? She even sent me photos, brunch plates, cocktails, a blurry skyline at night. But something about the photos nagged. They were generic, no faces, no friends tagged, just scenery. I showed one to my sister later, and she squinted. That's from the rooftop bar at the Hyatt. I know because I've been there. She paused. Lena doesn't have a Hyatt membership, does she? I shrugged it off, told her she was overthinking. But the image stuck. This is the part that haunts me most. A week before my failed proposal, Lena and I were in bed, scrolling on our phones, half talking. Out of nowhere, she said, "Do you think people sometimes get married for the wrong reasons?" I asked. "Like what reasons?" She shrugged. "Pressure. Timing. Not wanting to hurt someone." At the time, I thought she was being philosophical, maybe venting about a coworker's engagement. I kissed her shoulder and said, "We don't have to worry about that. We'd only do it for the right reasons." She smiled, but it was small, tight. Looking back, I realized she was asking me a question she didn't know how to say out loud. 3 nights after the "Did you tell him?" text, I came home from work earlier than usual. The apartment was dark except for the glow of her laptop. She was on a video call. She didn't notice me at first. Her voice was low, soft. I know. I haven't told him yet. I will. I promise." My keys clattered as I set them down. She startled, slammed the laptop shut, and plastered on a smile. "Hey babe, you're early." I asked who she was talking to. She said Kara, her college friend. I knew she was lying, because her tone had been nothing like how she talked to friends. It was intimate, loaded. But I didn't push. I was scared of the answer. That night, I opened my sock drawer to check on the ring, just to reassure myself it was still there, that my plan still made sense. I held it in my hand, the little velvet box, heavy as a brick, and felt like I was holding 2 futures at once, the one I'd planned and the one I was too afraid to name. I told myself I'd propose anyway, that once I did, everything else would make sense, that the shadow hanging over me would dissolve under the weight of a promise. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't the only one planning a proposal, because the next part of this story, the discovery, would prove it. There's no good way to describe the moment you realize your whole life has been rewritten behind your back. It's not cinematic. It's not slow motion. It's just a cold punch to the chest, followed by silence that feels too loud. That's what the discovery felt like. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home at the kitchen table while Lena was at a client meeting. The apartment was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional ping of my inbox. Then a notification popped up on our shared tablet. Lena's email. She'd forgotten to sign out. I wasn't snooping, not at first. It just lit up with a subject line so jarring I froze. Final proposal walkthrough. Catering venue details. My first thought was absurd. She's planning a surprise party for me. But the sender's address was from a wedding planner. My pulse spiked. I tapped. The email opened to an attachment. A PDF titled Engagement Party Itinerary, SJ. SJ, not S. My name. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a neatly formatted document with logos, menu options, venue maps. At the top, celebrating the engagement of Lena, last name, and Jason, last name. Jason. I stared at the name like it might rearrange itself if I blinked hard enough. But no. Clear as ink. Lena was already engaged to someone named Jason. The timeline included everything: proposal party, venue deposit, catering choices. There were notes about family introductions, his parents flying in, and her work friends confirmed attendance. Her work friends, the same ones I thought she was out late with on client dinners. My stomach dropped. I went to her Instagram, nothing obvious. No ring photos, no announcement, just the usual curated life. But then I checked her close friends story circle, the one she'd never added me to, claiming she'd never used it. I borrowed my sister's phone she'd been added. There it was. A short clip of Lena at a rooftop bar, holding up her hand, a different ring flashing in the city lights. The caption, she said, "Yes." SJ, her friends cheering, her smile bright, genuine, the same smile I thought she saved for me. I couldn't breathe. I went back to that mysterious text on her phone. "Did you tell him?" Now I knew who he was. Me. She hadn't told me because I wasn't supposed to know. I was the other man, but in reverse. I wasn't the secret affair. I was the decoy. I sat there in the kitchen, the ring box still in my drawer, while on my screen, Lena's other life unfurled in bullet points and catering options. Everything I'd planned, the speech, the bridge, the hidden photographer looked ridiculous now. A parody. I wasn't about to propose to my girlfriend. I was about to propose to someone else's fiancé. At that exact moment, Lena texted me, "Running late. Don't wait for me for dinner. Love you." Love you. I stared at those 2 words until they blurred. Did she type them out of habit? Did she mean them in some twisted, compartmentalized way? Did Jason get the same text at the same time? I didn't reply. I could have confronted her that night, waited for her to come home, slammed the printout on the counter, demanded the truth. But I didn't. I sat with it. Let it rot inside me. Let it grow sharper. Because I realized something. If I confronted her too soon, she'd lie. She'd find a way to spin it, gaslight me, deny. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't twist. So I started planning again. Not a proposal, a confrontation. And this time, I wouldn't be the one caught by surprise. There's a strange calm that comes over you when you decide you're done being lied to. The panic burns out. The heartbreak cools. What's left is a clarity so sharp it almost feels like anger's quieter cousin. That's where I was when I decided I wouldn't let Lena skate through this with half-truths. I wanted the truth. All of it. And I wanted her to choke on it. I printed the email, the whole PDF itinerary, glossy logo and all. I printed the Instagram screenshot too. Her with the ring, Jason's name in the hashtag. I folded them carefully into a manila folder, like I was preparing evidence for court. I put the folder on the coffee table. Next to it, I placed the ring box I'd bought. The box I'd planned to open with trembling hands on that bridge under golden hour light. I wanted her to see both futures at once, the one I'd been building and the one she'd stolen. That Friday night, she came home late again. Same excuse. Work dinner, she kissed my cheek, slipped off her shoes, poured herself a glass of wine. Casual, effortless, like she hadn't just spent the week engaged to another man. I told her, sit down. We need to talk. Something in my voice must have cracked through her performance. She froze, glass halfway to her lips, then slowly lowered it. What's wrong? She asked, already on the defensive. I didn't answer. I slid the folder across the table. She opened it, saw the documents, the screenshots. Her face drained of color. She started with denial. This isn't... I cut her off. Don't insult me with lies. Just tell me how long. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at the papers again, then at me, then at the ring box. Her eyes flicked to it like it was radioactive. Finally, she whispered, since last year. 12 months of dinners, holidays, inside jokes, Sunday mornings. All while she was planning a life with someone else. The story spilled out in fragments. Jason was a coworker. It started innocent. Drinks after work, then more. She'd been confused. She loved me, but she loved him too. She didn't want to hurt either of us, so she tried to figure it out. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Figure it out? You got engaged. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know how to stop it. That line broke something in me. People don't accidentally get engaged. They don't trip into rings and planners and Instagram hashtags. She'd chosen. Over and over again, she'd chosen. Just not me. Then came the final twist. Jason didn't know about me. She told him we'd broken up months ago. To him, I was an ex, maybe still lingering around the edges, but gone. He had no idea he was sharing his fiancé's life with another man. That made my skin crawl. We weren't just 2 men in love with the same woman. We were 2 men being played against each other like fools. I pushed the ring box toward her. This was supposed to be yours. She flinched, wouldn't touch it. Tears spilled over. I never wanted to hurt you. I stood, my voice was flat. You didn't hurt me. You destroyed me. I left her sitting there at the table, the evidence in front of her, the future she'd thrown away in a velvet box. I walked out and didn't look back. But the story didn't end there. Because secrets like this don't stay in one room. They spread. They infect. They drag families, friends, entire lives into their fallout. When I walked out that night, I thought the hardest part was over. I thought the confrontation was the climax, the breaking point, the thing you survive and then begin to crawl away from. I was wrong. The fallout was worse, because once a secret like that cracks open, it doesn't stop with you. It spreads outward like a shockwave, dragging in everyone who ever thought they knew the two of you. The next morning, my phone rang before I even had coffee. It was my sister. She never calls that early unless it's urgent. I saw it, she said. No preamble. Saw what? I asked, even though I already knew. She blocked me, but Jenna sent me the screenshot, the rooftop story, the hashtag. S and J. I felt sick. The story had already reached my family. My sister's voice shook with anger. You bought her a ring. You planned a proposal. And she's engaged to someone else? What the hell? I couldn't answer. I just sat there in silence while she cursed Lena's name until she ran out of words. By Sunday, my parents knew. Lena had always been close with them. She'd spent holidays with us. Laughed with my mom in the kitchen. Called my dad Pops. They loved her like a daughter. When I told them, I watched that love disintegrate in their eyes. My mom cried real guttural tears and kept saying, "How could she? How could she?" My dad just shook his head. Silent. The kind of silence that's worse than yelling. I thought that would be the end of it. But then Lena's family called. Her mother, her father, her sister. Each of them, in turn, trying to explain, to excuse, to soften. They'd known about Jason. They hadn't known about me. They were horrified, apologetic, confused. Her mother whispered, "We thought you two had broken up." She told us. I hung up. I couldn't bear it. Then came Jason. He called me on a Tuesday. I don't know how he got my number, maybe from mutual contacts, maybe from Lena, maybe from sheer determination. His voice was calm at first, almost professional. "I need to know the truth," he said. "Were you and Lena still together?" I told him everything. The proposal plan, the ring, the park, the texts, the emails. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, voice breaking, "She told me you were an ex, that you wouldn't let go, that you were still hanging around." The words hung between us like poison. He whispered, "We were planning our wedding." I whispered back, "So was I." And then, two men who should have hated each other sat in silence on the phone, realizing we were both victims of the same lie. Friends split down the middle. Some texted me furious solidarity. "I can't believe she did this." Others were quieter, hesitant, unsure how to navigate the wreckage. One mutual friend slipped and admitted, "Honestly, I thought something was off. She was juggling too much, but I didn't know." That stung, that people had seen shadows but said nothing. As for Lena, she texted, called, emailed, pleaded. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I love you both. I was scared. I ignored her. I couldn't bear her words. They weren't apologies. They were confessions of cowardice." But then she showed up at my apartment door, eyes swollen from crying, begging to explain. I didn't let her in. I told her, through the crack in the door, "You made your choice. Now live with it." She sank to the floor, sobbing, while I locked the deadbolt and sat on the other side, stone-faced, my own tears burning but refusing to fall. Word spread fast. By the end of the week, Jason had called off the engagement. He returned the venue deposits. He told her family the truth. He posted a short, cutting message on social media. "Engagement canceled. Lies have consequences." It blew up. Friends reshared it. The gossip spun. Lena's name was whispered with disdain in circles that once adored her. She wasn't just exposed, she was infamous. And me? I was collateral. People pitied me, comforted me, offered me beers and shoulders. But pity tastes like ash. One night, a week after it all collapsed, I opened my sock drawer and stared at the ring box. I thought about throwing it away, about selling it, about smashing it to dust. Instead, I closed the drawer and walked away. Because that box wasn't just a ring. It was a grave marker for the future I thought I was building. And I wasn't ready to bury it. Not yet. The fallout shattered everything. But the aftermath, the rebuilding, the scar tissue, that's where the hardest work began. People tell you betrayal makes you stronger, that time heals, that you'll look back one day and laugh, or at least shake your head with some kind of stoic wisdom. Maybe they mean well, but when the dust first settles, all you feel is rubble. No strength, no clarity, just the wreckage of the life you thought you were living. That's what the aftermath was like. The ring haunted me. Every morning when I opened that sock drawer, it was there, lurking like a ghost. I couldn't bring myself to throw it out, but I couldn't keep it either. One night, fueled by whiskey and anger, I walked down to the river and stood on the pedestrian bridge, holding it over the railing. One flick of my wrist, and the current would carry it away. But I didn't drop it. Not because I wanted it, but because I didn't want Lena's betrayal to dictate what I did with something I bought in good faith. So I kept it. A symbol, not of love, but of survival. Proof that I hadn't imagined all of this, that I had once believed in something enough to stake my future on it. My sister forced me into therapy. I resisted at first typical stubbornness, telling myself I could handle it. But she wore me down. and eventually I found myself in a bland office, sitting on a couch that smelled faintly of lavender, telling a stranger about how I almost proposed to a woman who was already engaged to someone else. The therapist didn't flinch, didn't gasp, just nodded and said, "That must have been incredibly destabilizing." Destabilizing. The word landed like a diagnosis, because that's exactly what it was. My reality had been destabilized, and I was learning to stand on uneven ground. Jason reached out again, weeks later. We met at a bar, of all places. Two men who should have been rivals, clinking glasses like soldiers after the same war. He looked wrecked, hollow-eyed. "I thought she was the one," he said, staring into his beer. "So did I replied. We didn't bond over shared hatred, but over shared loss. We both loved someone who didn't deserve it. That was our connection." At the end of the night, he raised his glass to dodged bullets. I raised mine too. It felt like the first step toward moving on. Lena didn't vanish. She tried. Emails, letters, showing up at my building once until the doorman told her to leave. I never responded. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I knew any answer would pull me back into her orbit, and I couldn't survive another round of lies. I found out through friends that she moved out of state. New job, new start. Maybe knew Jason. I didn't care. She could reinvent herself 100 times. None of it would erase what she did. Months passed. The pitying looks faded. Friends stopped tiptoeing around me. Life returned, slowly, to its rhythm. Work deadlines, family dinners, football on Sundays. But underneath it all was the scar. Not visible, not bleeding, but there. A reminder. A warning. I don't trust as easily now. I don't ignore red flags. And maybe that's sad. But maybe it's also survival. Sometimes late at night, I imagine what would have happened if I hadn't checked that email. If I'd gone through with the proposal. If she'd said yes. Would she have kept living a double life? Splitting herself between two futures until one collapsed? Would Jason and I have collided anyway, months later, at some grotesque coincidence? I'll never know. What I do know is this. The life I thought I lost wasn't real. The future I grieved never actually existed. I wasn't robbed of a marriage. I was spared from a disaster. It doesn't make the pain vanish, but it reframes it,